My grandmother, Taiba Lipsker, was a very, very special and holy woman. Like many of our grandmothers, she did not enjoy a serene and easy, smooth life. Growing up in Bolshevik, communist Russia as a Jew was difficult. Raising a family in Georgia during the 1930s under Stalin's tyranny was far from simple. Then came the war. They escaped the former Soviet Union on false papers, came to the displaced persons camps, the DP camps. Again, life was anything but serene, raising a large family, sometimes in one-bedroom flat. My grandparents made it in 1947 to the United States of America. They settled on a farm in New Jersey. That too didn't turn out so successful, and they relocated to Brooklyn, New York. My grandparents raised 9 beautiful, amazing children and a 10th orphan. Making a livelihood proved very complicated, and the upheavals of her life took their toll on her. She suffered from anxiety, from depression, from melancholy. And one day my grandmother consulted the Lubavitcher Rebbe what to do about her internal psychological and emotional state. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave her fascinating advice. He suggested to her that she go to as many Jewish weddings as possible and to dance away at these weddings and inspire other people to dance. As it happens to be, my grandmother was an exceptionally skilled dancer. She embraced the Rebbe's advice, and for decades, she would go to every possible wedding and dance away. Family, friends, relatives, community members, and sometimes complete strangers. Everybody knew Mrs. Lipsker is here. She is the life of the wedding and the life of the party. This was not part of her nature. This was quite contrary to her nature, but she did it, and she did it with every fiber of her being. She lived in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. There were many Bali Tshuva, young women and men who returned to Judaism, and they had small families attending the wedding, or sometimes no families. And my grandmother would come in, and she brought so much joy and vigor and stamina and inspiration to the wedding. She would dance away sometimes for hours with the bride and with the mothers and with the siblings and with the families and with the relatives. And indeed, the joy that she brought to hundreds and thousands of people over long decades, it came back to her. It gave her so much joy and strength and fortitude and resilience and inspiration. Besides the fact, exercising a few times a week for a few hours a night, dancing with all your might is also very effective for anxiety. And in my mind, this embodies one of the most powerful and relevant messages of Hanukkah. Sometimes I find myself engulfed in darkness. Many of us are dealing with anxiety and unresolved wounds and trauma, pain, stress, depression. Sometimes I find myself in a state of darkness, confusion, uncertainty, despair. I want to battle the darkness. I want to extricate all that darkness from my system, from my psyche, from my environment, from my home, from my world. But Hanukkah teaches us that sometimes the most effective, powerful solution is don't fight the darkness, but kindle a flame of hope, a flame of joy, of light, of positivity. Start dancing and inspire other people to dance. And in that dance, a passion, a fire, a warmth is created in you and around you, and the darkness will vanish and dissipate. 13 years ago, my grandmother's youngest son, Shmuel, was marrying off his child. I came to the wedding a little late, and I noticed that none of my uncles and aunts are present. My mother is also not there. What happened? I find out that that night, my grandmother, who was 94 years old, had a hard time breathing. They rushed her to Methodist Hospital. The Hatzalah member called my mother, and my mother came straight from the wedding to visit her mother, my grandmother. She saw that the situation was complicated. She called her siblings and other relatives to come to the hospital, and they all came from the wedding. This scene was surreal. My grandmother was on her bed, surrounded by 30 or 40, 50 family members. All the women dressed in wedding gowns, the men dressed in wedding attire, singing joyous melodies. At one point, the nurse comes into the ICU and she says, "What is this, a wedding?" A few minutes after midnight, my holy grandmother returned her soul to its maker. She died as she lived, in an atmosphere of joy, meaning, purpose, unity, with the family that she loved so much, surrounding her deathbed, all dressed in their finest wedding attire. Happy Hanukkah.